It is the 15th of the 9th, 2025. The time is 5 minutes past 8, and that means, as always, that there are many F1-centric threads at which we need to pull. We'll talk about Felipe Drugovich, next steps. F1 has failed our youth, our hot prospects. We'll talk about Scuderia Ferrari and the chaos of it and its circumstance. The red car with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse atop. So too, we'll talk about Red Bull Racing and their change in approach. The big question, the hot topic on everybody's lips, is whether they can replicate for their performance as at the last Grand Prix, or whether the Italian Grand Prix at Monza was an anomaly. It's going to get techier than techie things, chat, as we are, of course, in race week. It is round 17, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix at Baku. So too, we'll talk about Maximilian Verstappen and his performance at the Nordschleife. How very dare we not? And we'll talk about Isack Hadjar as our main course, set, some say, to replace Tsunoda-san at Red Bull as at 2026. Crackosaurus, absolute legendary settings. I appreciate you out here gifting memberships as if it were water. Bruce Lee settings. In the first instance, let's talk about Scuderia Ferrari, because breaking news, everybody and their man and their dog, every man and their dog, excuse me, is leaving that team. As if you don't know, the context is key. Ferrari have done nothing if not underperformed this season. They finished last season 14 points adrift of McLaren. Not very far. They could have won themselves for constructors, couldn't they? They were this close. Some say that they had the best car as at the final Grand Prix last year. Frederic Vasseur decided it was his big idea, 64,000 feet level thinking, that he was going to change 99% of a car that was the market lead, for Pete's sake. What are we doing, Frederic Vasseur? And what did Scuderia Ferrari do? They gave that dude another contract, of course. This makes perfect sense. Why not? Scuderia Ferrari, ineptitude, PLC, incompetence at each and every single juncture. What else would you expect from them at this point? 17 seasons since they last won themselves some silverware. You will recall 2007, Kimi Raikkonen. What are we doing here? I mean, colour me naive. Maybe it's my fault for expecting any different. The trend is your friend until there is a bend. And as far as Ferrari's underperformance is concerned, there is no end nor bend in sight. Here's where it gets techie, because the key personnel are leaving, are they not? Wolfgang and the other chap, both god tier minds, one of whom was managing their engine program going into the all important rule and reg change in 2026. Those two bods are leaving. Sir John, you're an absolute legend, sir. Ferrari so bad, Max driving their cars as a hobby racer. Imagine that's exactly what's going on. And I think that's the bit. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that potentially Ferrari have entered the Max Verstappen 2027 chats. I beg to differ. I don't see Max Verstappen going there, even if romanticism is a thing. Why would Max go there if indeed he harbours aspirations to join 7-time champions? The one they call Michael Schumacher and the one they call Sir Lewis. Why would he go to Ferrari, especially when you consider this latest? Guys and girls are leaving them en masse. First there's Wolfgang, then there's this other chap whose name eludes me. He used to be heading up the engine program going into 2026, all important rule and reg change. And then you have another unwanted entrant as far as notable leavers. He has a name, and his name is Jock Clear. What are we doing, chat? Jock Clear, he's the goated guy. He's the one that managed the bloody Ferrari Academy. He's the one with whom Charles Leclerc has ties. He's the one who helped improve Charles Leclerc, bring him up to speed. Jacques Clear is Charles Leclerc's guy. So what does that say about Charles Leclerc's future at Scuderia Ferrari? Potentially a nothing burger. But if I'm Charles Leclerc and Jacques Clear is going out the door, in addition to these god tier intellectual minds, Wolfgang, what's his face, and the guy that managed the engine program, if they're leaving en masse now and I'm Charles Leclerc, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to be out that door as well. It would be remiss, therefore, of Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean Alesi's team, not to explore opportunities to potentially send that dude to pastures and you mention no names, Red Bull or Mercedes, McLaren or Aston Martin. Charles Leclerc has options because let's be forget, Max Verstappen in 2027 will have his pick of the litter once purveying the levelling of the competitive landscape in 2026. But shortly thereafter in the pecking order, I would argue, comes modern day journalese Charles Leclerc. Oh, and by the way, if you think that's bad, Luca Montezemolo has told you, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe this is hyperbole from Cameron yet again, talking about how bad, how poor, how consistently Scuderia Ferrari have underperformed. Maybe it is that. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Here's Luca Montezemolo, legend of Ferrari, one-time CEO. Here's what he had to say of Ferrari, his team, red badge, red car with a yellow badge and black prancing horse at top. Here's what Montezemolo said, quote, "There is no leadership and above all I see a lack of a strong and determined spirit. Announcements are made," mention no names, Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson and Hamilton. "Announcements are made that often create excessive expectation. Instagram posts with record level engagements for an F1 Instagram post." Montezemolo continues, quote, "First you get the results and then you make the announcements. Manage expectations, therefore." Quote, one of the things I learned at Ferrari and have always put into practice is that when you win, you have to work even harder. And today, when you don't win, this is even more true. You have to choose the right people. Mattia Binotto would have been better than Frederick Vasseur if he had been able to continue. Constant change, says Montezemolo, means losing one of the most important elements, stability. If you change, you have to start all over again. Montezemolo doesn't like the way in which Ferrari are heading, I don't think, and I concur, sir, particularly all these god-tier minds are leaving, and latest on a long list of intellectual property that Scuderia Ferrari are losing going into an all-important year in 2026 is the one that they call Charles Leclerc's guy, the man who built the house that is Scuderia Ferrari. Crackosaurus, your legend. I feel like it would be goated if you could interview Charles Leclerc. Yeah. Maybe one day, sir. But one day we'll make it happen. Modern day Joe. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about young, hungry lions, Frederick Vasseur's had enough. For the longest time, we've seen on the Aston Martin pit wall the Brazilian that they call Drogo, F2 champion, 2022. Now, however, he's going to pastures anew. Why do we do this to ourselves, F1? Why do we not foster our young? Why do we not put young, hot prospects into position and leave the likes of Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso in place? Surely, and Lance Stroll, mention no names, surely Felipe Drugovich has proven himself potentially capable of winning a world championship, or at least worthy of a chance. Why else would you have F2? I thought that was meant to be a conveyor belt, a proving ground for the next generation of F1 driver. Felipe Drugovich, we've let him down, done him wrong. He was the F2 champion in 2022 and since then has not been able to get a drive. Every time they subbed him into that Aston Martin, he looked really good. He looked like he had the potential to be a driver, but yet and still, there's no room at the inn. This raises the question, is F1 really a meritocracy or is it nepotism? Is it fastest finger first? He who has the most money and backing behind him, mention no names, Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, et al. $20 million is how much Honda are paying Red Bull to keep Yuki Tsunoda there. And potentially something's going to happen over the next 12 months. We'll get to that. Let me tell you about Maximilian Verstappen. Andreas Gordon, the dude with whom Maximilian Verstappen was ticking boxes, the test driver, the instructor that Maximilian Verstappen needed to appease to get himself a license and clear himself for a cheeky NLS GT3 race, September the 27th. He had this to say: "I'm truly impressed with Max Verstappen. It was an honour, quote, for me to work with him for a while. He's a true world champion and a true racer." I echo those sentiments, lest we get too deep into the Maximilian Verstappen glaze, because, oh, by the way, as we go into the Baku Grand Prix, the hot topic reads something like this: Will Red Bull be able to take it to McLaren, or was last race weekend at the Italian Grand Prix just a one-off, an anomalous instance by dint of the track being a drag strip? Now we know RB21 has still multitudinous foibles of the mechanical and aerodynamic variety: snap oversteer through the high speed things, understeer in perpetuity without compunction on the low speed twisties. Now, have they fixed for those all of a sudden? Well, we'll find out at Baku, because it's not Monza. There is tests. It is techie. There is lots of medium. There is high speed. There's the long straight, of course, but there's lots of medium and low speed too. So Red Bull, have they fixed it properly? Or is this a misnomer, a misdirection of sorts, talking about lowering Mekis underfloor, floor upgrade, floor fairings? Well, we'll get to see Baku this race weekend, for which, of course, we'll be streaming every second live. Cash rules everything around me. Let's go, Sir John, around F1. Saudi's got the money. Dollar bills. Yeah, I love that. Look at Sir John quoting the infamous Wu-Tang. I couldn't have said it better myself. But let me tell you the context of Red Bull. So many people are saying that Lauren Mekis is coming with a different approach. And there's an article, a report today that speaks to that. The one that they call Christian Albers, who's been around Red Bull all the while, says of Christian Horner's approach to practice, quali and the race, that the reason why Red Bull had so many problems, the reason why they'd look like dogs on Friday and then all of a sudden the car would come alive with such frequency on Saturday and therefore Sunday, is because they turned their engine down in practice all the way through. FP1, FP2, FP3, and then only then in quali would Max and Tsunoda-san, Liam Lawson see what they were working with. You can't believe this. I don't understand it. I know sometimes in free practice you will turn down the engine with a view to emphasise longevity. There is such a thing as reliability issues, but it's 2025. Surely those have trended down to as near as makes no difference zero. To such an effect. Suffice to say that Red Bull could be running in practice their engines at 12. Why not? So that Max and whoever else is stationed alongside him, Tsunoda-san at the time of writing, can get a proper feel for their car. Can you imagine, chat, being at Italian Grand Prix, the Temple of Speed, in free practice, trying to get your eye in and understand where the grip is in a car running on 8 as opposed to 10? What? No sense. Turn the power units up, Christian Albers. Everybody's coming for Christian Horner now, talking about his iniquities, that his numerous faux pas committed at the altar of operational and managerial infrastructure. I know that there's a stalwart, there are die-hard Christian Horner fans still at Red Bull, but it feels like they are being outpointed, that there is a growing number of Christian Horner detractors, and that's why you see these reports come out. Albers says the main thing is a difference in approach in practice. That's where their speed came from at the Temple of Speed last time out. He says, quote, "We were trying things out and already pushing closer to the limit during free practice," Albers told Sky Germany. "That allows us to find the car's maximum earlier and ensures we're not far off in setup directions compared to the past." Oh, the humanity. Who knew this, Safak? That's chaos. That Red Bull were trying to run a race. Mention no names, Christian Horner. He's the one who said this. Trying to run a race with one leg in free practice. What? Maximilian Verstappen, again, speak to any of his performance engineers. Mention no names, Blake Hinsey of Break F1 fame. Mention no names, GP. One of Maximilian Verstappen's gifts is that he can just jump in the car and go 10 tenths straight away. So to not utilise that in free practice seems like a massive faux pas turned the engines down on Friday. What for? But then that still begs the question. Was the Lauren Mekis upgrades, was the fact that he's treating, apparently in inverted commas, Tsunoda-san, equally giving him the upgrades and not sparing them for Maximilian Verstappen, the fact that they're now listening to Max Verstappen more in real time and leveraging his not insubstantial technical expertise. Does this mean then, therefore, that at Baku, Azerbaijan, we can expect a race between Max and the papaya-coloured cars in Oscar Piastri? Well, if they don't sort out their house and team orders, potentially even more so. Because, oh, by the way, fail quickest finish. Let's go, Crackosaurus. George. Fail fast. One must fail fast, George. God tier levels of insight and philosophy. Let me tell you about this, though. Your main event looks something like this. For the longest time, Isack Hadjar has been rumoured to be the next one stationed alongside Max Verstappen in 2026. All F1 journalists and publications are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. Automotor und Sport, otherwise known as AMUS, has come out today and said it's the worst kept secret that Hadjar will get the promotion. Well deserved too, some say. Been brilliant season to date, rookie of the year by a gazillion miles. Now more than ever, as Bartoletto and Kimi Antonelli in particular have tailed off, Hadjar has been there with frequency, in perpetuity. Even last race, when he failed to qualify properly, works his way through the field like a tried and tested veteran. There is something, of course, about Isack Hadjar, le petit professeur, as some call him, comparing him to the legend that is Alain Prost, four-time. I tell you what's important though here. What happens next for the likes of Liam Lawson and Tsunoda-san? Because for the avoidance of doubt, 5 does not go into 4. Maximilian Verstappen will absolutely have your drive. You can take that one to the bank. At the top table, Oracle Red Bull Racing. He will be partnered, per this article, AMUS, alongside Isack Hadjar. He gets the promotion. But then what happens at Racing Bulls? Well, Arvin Lindblad, currently 7th in F2, 75 points, behind the championship lead. But we know that Helmut Marko sees him not as the next Max Verstappen, but potentially the next Red Bull Racing champion. He will get the promotion in that Racing Bull seat. So who says alongside him? Will it be Liam Lawson, Christian Horner's guy, or will they give it to Tsunoda-san, where you can take this one to the bank as well, chat? Do you know what I mean? Hold me accountable to this. Of course it will be Liam Lawson. You will recall, if past his prologue, the disrespect with which Tsunoda-san was treated back end of last year. 2024, he was meant to be testing. Helmut Marko was the only one of the C-suite execs, the decision makers, the king makers that stayed behind to see whether Tsunoda-san was ready and willing and capable of getting the promotion. Nobody else cared. Marcus said that Tsunoda-san was capable, but he needed to iron out for his inconsistency. Ergo, they just didn't think he was ready, that he had the minerals, and that's why they gave the top job to Liam Lawson. Now, don't think for a second, on the back of Tsunoda-san's underperformance season to date, 6-7 races without points, world record breaking settings as far as Red Bull Racing drivers and their extent of their underperformance. Tsunoda-san's gone, chat. Javier, you're an absolute legend. Just thank you, David. Thank you, you're a legend, Javier. I tell you what, I think Tsunoda-san's gone. Not to mention the fact that 20 million is how much Honda, $20 million US, is how much Honda are paying Red Bull Racing for the privilege of having a Japanese driver with a seat at the top table. Oracle Red Bull Racing. What happens next year when Honda pull the plug? When Honda, it's no longer Oracle Red Bull Racing in collaboration with Honda as far as the build of the power unit. Now next year, Honda will have themselves an exclusive relationship with Aston Martin pastures. And so what happens to Tsunoda-san then? You'll recall at Goodwood when they were doing the celebration, 20 years of Red Bull Racing in F1. You recall on the balcony with Lord March that Tsunoda-san wasn't even there. It was Danny Rick, it was Christian Horner, it was Maximilian Verstappen. I didn't even see Tsunoda there. I don't think they fancy him much. And I think we're watching potentially the last season of Tsunoda-san as an F1 driver, especially, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, on the back of this latest news. It gets techie, I'm telling you. Thanks for a great support. Jomo, you're a legend, chap. Even I can see that too. They will find a seat for Tsunoda-san. Do you think they'll find a seat? Lindblad isn't even beating his teammate. I think he's still green. Michael, I would agree. His 7th isn't a good look, but that didn't stop Antonelli getting the promotion. I'm sure Antonelli was running in 12th, but then look how that's working out. 20 million, but it's a lot of money, eh? A lot A lot of money. What's up, Petrohead gang? You're a legend, Neil. Space Ghost agree. Crackosaurus has so many goated minds in here, as well as Safak is a legend of a different variety. The value here is stellar in magnitude. I make no apologies, chat, for labouring this point. This channel ceases to exist without your industry, your availability, your turning up and having these conversations. I'm telling you, and I will never ever make an apology for labouring that point. Sonoda's confidence destroyed in car 2. 100%, Sir John. It's hard though, right? Trying to race with this Max Verstappen guy, who I hear isn't too bad when he's had his Weetabix. Do you know what I mean? Lindblad needs more experience. He's too raw and inexperienced. Red Bull should leave Hadjar alone until next year. That's the plan, Daniel. They won't promote him this year. It'll be 2026. They should make the car a bit drivable first before bringing in Isack. His body language is just sad. Sonoda-san. I think he's had enough. I would have had enough as well. What's the point? Can you imagine being Sonoda-san, coming in on a wing and a prayer, all this bloody promise? Really, really good driver, everybody says, to a man or woman. And then all of a sudden you're in this car and then you can't score points, nor can you get out of Q1. And then all of the chat in the background, if you're paying attention, is about Isack Hadjar superseding you 2026 when the $20 million by dint of Honda's collaboration with Oracle Red Bull Racing goes away. I'm going to get techie. I feel if you put Norris in there, he will struggle to compete with Max. Max is just too good. I think there's a confluence of factors there, Kartik. There is a confluence of factors. Max is very good, you know what I mean? I don't even want to do the Max Verstappen glaze thing because people don't like it, apparently. But Max, in addition to Max being very good, I'm not sure that Red Bull Racing, as far as its working culture, particularly under the tenure of Christian Horner, has been the best place for young, hot prospects to work. You don't get enough time. Liam Lawson said that, didn't he? He said the one thing is time, and that's the one thing I don't have enough of. Get time to play your way into the crease as a young, hungry line. Wrap your head around the multitudinous foibles and inequities as far as the RB21 is concerned of the mechanical and aerodynamic variety. You know what I mean? Learn how to work and drive the car. But these guys won't get time, nor will Isack Hadjar next year. The irony is this. Isack Hadjar, when asked by Craig Slater last race or race before last, he was asked, are you ready for the step up? It's a poison chalice. So many F1 aficionados are saying if I was Isack Hadjar, if I were around him and his manager, I would steer him well clear of Oracle Red Bull Racing because it's the curse. You know what I mean? It's the kiss of death. It's the sword of Damocles. Why would you, if you are Sonoda-san, look to fly too close to the sun? Or Isack Hadjar? You see how it's worked out with all and sundry. Everybody that's come into that seat since Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly. Need I go on? There's loads. Speed. There's been nobody that's performed in that car. Checo Perez, Danny Rick. And these are good drivers. Lawson and now Sonoda-san. What makes you, Isack Hadjar, think that you are better than all of the aforementioned? Greg Slater asking that question, didn't he? In the pit pen. Said, you know what, Isack, are you ready for that seat? All of the pressure that it comes with. Are you ready for a fire-breathing Maximilian Verstappen in the other garage? Are you ready? Aren't you still a little bit green? A bit young? Isn't your story one of potential? Couldn't this be wasted potential if you make the move next year at the altar of Red Bull Racing, the sword of Damocles yet again? Isack Hadjar just looked back and said, I am ready for anything. It's going to get techie, chat. It is going to get techie. I like that response a lot from Isack Hadjar. Not wanting for confidence anymore, in stark contrast to the first race of the year when the young fella, Le Petit Professeur, binned it on the formation lap. Going to get techie, chat. It will get techier than techie things. We'll be streaming this race weekend. Normal service will resume. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests.